Politics is the art of looking for trouble, finding it everywhere, diagnosing it incorrectly, and applying the wrong remedies. Groucho Marx. All right, welcome to an evening episode of the Liberty Dad Podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. I am your host, DL, America's most objective libertarian. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time this evening. All right, where has DL been? What's going on? So you all know, if you're a regular audience member of the show, whether you're on Spotify or iTunes, or you're watching me live through video on Rumble or YouTube or X or wherever, Facebook, you know that I will prioritize practically everything over the podcast: work, my family, and other work, because we have multiple things that we do around here. So we are in real estate, and I was working on a property. We've been trying to finish up this property, get it ready for rent. And I'm basically the yard guy, right? And so I had to work on it. And Monday, like through a series of events, I ended up having to work on it Monday, whereas I was actually anticipating being able to do some things at my house. I wanted to kind of get my garage organized, blah, blah, blah. And, but unfortunately, a few things got in the way. And so I was like, all right, Monday it is. We're going over there. We're going to spend time at this property and we're going to knock it out. So I was literally there at 10 a.m., got a bit of a late start. I got started earlier than that, but I got there to work at 10 a.m. and I worked up until, I closed my garage door after I finished putting everything away at 8 p.m. So it was a very, very long day out in the hot sun, working. In fact, let me just, since I put all that work into it, let me show you. And if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify or whatever, I will try to describe it to you the best I can. But here is the backyard. Here's how it started. And this is when we got the property. You can see there's just debris all over. There's vegetation everywhere. There's an old rusted out shed. That actually was what I really did yesterday. And then here is what it looks like now. Totally cleaned up, looks way better. You can see kind of in the back, all the things are staged for later this week when the trash comes. So that's what I did. I put in a ton of work. Now we've worked on this for the last, I don't know, month and a half, like every weekend. And so I've spent a lot of time doing a lot of renovation stuff. So that's what I've been up to. And so if you don't see a podcast, know that I just got behind. So and look, I want to point this out. All those rent is theft and landlords don't provide value bozos. I don't think they could have lasted a half a day with my wife and I, right? Like, or me. I just don't think they could do it. Like, they want to talk about, like, I provide lots of value. Like, you see it right there. I just showed it to you. That kind of work I do. I go in, we find a property. We don't flip that many properties or, have that many properties. It's not like we're millions and millions of properties or whatever. But when we do a property, I go in and I make it better, right? For the things that I do. And then if I can't do it because I don't have time or it's just too big of a job, then we hire it out. Or if you need somebody with a license and all that, for permits and whatever, we'll hire it out. And the whole goal again is to make the property better than when we received it. So just want to throw that out there, let you guys know what's been going on. All right, so we're going to get into this full disclosure. Okay, we're talking about two local people here. Now, if you're not out of Jacksonville, please stay tuned. Stay tuned in because I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot of stuff in here that I talk about tonight that I think is very relevant, even if the particular circumstances do not apply to your city. So just listen in and soak in all the information. All right, so we're going to be talking about Elizabeth Andersen and Tia Bess primarily tonight. So who are these people? First and foremost, I have no relationship whatsoever with Elizabeth. Like, I know who she is. I don't think we've ever interacted on social media until like a few days ago. I'll tell you about that in a moment. Um, Now, Tia, I am friends with, and we have a good relationship. So, and we met as a result of this issue that popped up in 2022. So what happened? Elizabeth Andersen was running for school board. She was the incumbent, and somebody named April Carney um, rose up to challenge her. This is back when Moms for Liberty was making a big push to get people that they supported into like school boards and stuff like that. So this is at that time frame. And you might remember that was when like a lot of parents were going to schools and they were like, yo, what's up with this book? Why am I reading what I could imagine coming out of a Playboy out of this book that was in that was in a school? Right. And then so there's big arguments about, whether or not the book should be there, what they should do. Are we banning books? I talked about that a long time ago. I gave my opinion basically like, look, there's like 6 books or so that keep popping up. Surely out of all the thousands of books, we can deal with those 6 books and say, okay, maybe these ones aren't appropriate, or maybe these ones need to be put somewhere where only high schoolers can access them. And I know some people might say, well, DL, they weren't even appropriate for high schoolers. I remember being in high school. I promise you, whatever you thought wasn't appropriate, we were already talking about. So let's just leave it at that. At the time, as the chair of the Libertarian Party here in Duval County, I happened to connect. I knew some friends that knew April, and I was like, "Hey, why don't you come out and speak at our meeting?" Now, for the record, my record in inviting people is all over the map. So if you think I was doing some sort of like libertarian but really playing Republican, it's not really true. Also, these are nonpartisan. These were nonpartisan elections. So, but I mean, at the end of the day, we know one side tends to be Republican, one side tends to be Democrat, right? Like, even though they say nonpartisan, we kind of know. So, and I, for no particular reason, I didn't invite Elizabeth Andersen. No particular reason, I promise. Right? Cross my heart, hope to cry, whatever. Okay. So, but when this went down, I will say that I was I did find Elizabeth Anderson's comment inappropriate. So who is she? She was, again, like I said, the incumbent. She was running. April Carney won. And we can take a look here real quick at this is the election. So April Carney won with 52% of the vote, as opposed to her opponent winning, coming in with 47% of the vote. Sorry, I was clicking on some things there. So that's a little bit of the background here. Okay. Now, the real question that you're probably curious about is, okay, well, what was all the drama? Okay. What was going on? Okay. So now we had these school board elections. So Elizabeth Andersen, I believe she was on a Zoom call in an activist group. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. I just mean, a group that says, hey, we're going to organize and we're going to push for our ideas. I don't remember which one, but I think she was invited to speak through a Zoom call. So she was on a Zoom call, and here is her original comment that kicked everything off. So let's play that clip and we'll hear what she had to say.
That's why I'm running. And the Moms for Liberty movement in Duval is not as strong as I think it is in the surrounding counties. I'll tell you a few key names because I think I saw somebody was kind of looking for that information. Keisha King, as Dan shared, and I'm going to drop a link to Keisha's YouTube video where she slams the Duval County's LGBTQ policy. And this was before Don't Say Gay. The legislation came out. So we know that these folks are absolutely on a phone call, speed dial basis with our legislators to move legislation forward. In the videos or in the images that Dan shared with you, my opponents in both of them, or in all of it, she's pretty high level with local Moms for Liberty. So we have Keisha King, April Carney is my opponent, Tia Bess is another one that has a child with special needs, and they often will sort of parade her out as a token person because everyone is doing harmful things to children with special needs, and that's to push that agenda.
Okay, so the comment that kicked everything off was calling her a token. Okay. And then you could probably add, not much attention was given to the last part where she's like, oh yeah, they got this agenda. But the truth is, in politics, everybody has an agenda. So I wouldn't really count that as like some sort of like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. Like that would just be saying exactly what happened, right? Like if you said, oh, yeah, this person has an agenda. Yes, everyone does. That's politics. So no big deal there. Okay. So now, so I didn't hear about this initially until I saw Tia's response. Now, at the time, I had no idea who Tia was, and I was not familiar with Elizabeth Andersen either. My son was born in 2019, so he was not yet old enough to go to school. So I hadn't quite stuck my toe into the waters of local school politics at this time. So I was not very familiar with everybody. All right. So here is Tia's response. And just wait until you see it.
Hey y'all, it's me, Tia Bess, or as Elizabeth Andersen would like to say, your token person. So you know what? I got me some token watermelon. All token people have to have food of their ethnic group. Got me some watermelon. I was so petty. I even got me some fried chicken. Sorry, guys.
I'm sorry. This is hysterical. She apologized to the chickens behind her. Like, sorry, I'm eating your friends. They are delicious, though. Just want you to know. That's hysterical. Okay, so let's continue listening.
And what's some good old fried chicken good without? You know, Elizabeth, some red Kool-Aid, because you know black people love red Kool-Aid. Fried chicken, Kool-Aid, and watermelon. Now, all jokes aside, we need to have a come to Jesus talk. What I have in my hand right here is my son's IEP. My son has been getting an IEP since he was 3 years old, thanks to Duval County. My son is not a token. I am not a token. Because I speak up for my son's rights, we're tokens. Way before the pandemic of 2020, 2019, before the shutdown, I was advocating for my son's rights. You mean to tell me because my son was stuck in self-contained classes, in ESE classes that he did not need, that automatically he's token. That doesn't make any sense. So for you to say that somebody parades me out like I'm a slave, like I'm somebody's show pony, I ain't nobody's show pony. I don't have puppets telling me. I'm not anybody's puppet to be told what to do. That doesn't make sense. And for you to claim and say that's not a racist term, that is racist. Being a token person is a racist term. Now, either you're talking about me or you're talking about my special needs son. One of us you're referring to as token. Who talks about special needs kids like that? You do. All I have to say is this right here. Nobody's exploiting me and nobody's exploiting my son. You're making it seem like Black women don't have their own voice. Like I need some group behind me to tell me what's right and what's wrong for my kids. I stood up to you and the Duval County School Board for the legal masking mandates of my child. He has special needs. He has sensory issues. He cannot mask, but yet you still push the issue. So yes, I'm going to stand up. And if that makes me a domestic terrorist or if that makes me a token person in your book, then it is what it is. All I need you to do is keep my name out your mouth. In the words of Will Smith, to your best, out.
All right. So that was her response. Now, look, can I just come clean here, folks? I don't see that video very often, but whenever it does pop up and I see it, or when I think about it on the rare occasion, I kind of giggle inside. You know what I mean? Like it was, wait a minute, hold up. No, I'm sorry. I chuckle quietly like a man. Roar, testosterone. Okay, but seriously, I find it amusing. It is hysterical. And let me say this. Black folk, if you're out there, I'm just gonna say, if somebody says something racist towards you, or if you believe they have, right? Whatever the case is, whichever one applies, that's the way. That is how you handle. That's an amazing response. Like, oh, you want to say something about me? Fine. Let me mock you. Let me mock you until you bury your head into your hands. Right? Like I think that would go a long way in this country. So like that's an amazing response. I thought it was great. When I saw that, I immediately started reaching out to people. I was like, hey, can somebody connect me to Tia Best? And I brought her to the Libertarian Party of Duval County because I wanted to hear, I was really curious. I was like, okay, what is it that you did or did you do for your son? What kind of advocacy did you put out there? Like what was going on? What's the story? She came out and she told her story, and that was pretty awesome. Right. So that was awesome. Now at that time, I wasn't really trying to sway any opinions one way or another. I was just reaching out to whomever I had easy access to. Right. And since I knew some people, it made it relatively easy. I was like, hey, can you get me a hold? They're like, yeah, I know that person. Let me get you their phone number. Right. And so then I reached out and I talked to her and she came out. And so that was great. So just wanted to give you like a quick synopsis in case you're not in Jacksonville, so you know what happened. So now let's dive into what's going on today. Okay. So Mayor Donna Deegan, she's our Democrat mayor. She leads the city with the dominant Republican city council. She nominated Elizabeth Andersen for Jacksonville Public Library Board of Trustees. Now, what is a board of trustees? Let's lay down some facts here. So according to the library trustees bylaws, I read them. Right? This is the kind of thing that I do for you folks. I go and I read bylaws so I can talk about local issues. The Board of Library Trustees, I'm quoting here, shall have authority to receive, accept, and exercise control over funds, property, gifts, legacies, or devices now and hereafter granted to the library or its predecessor libraries and agencies for the purpose of establishing and maintaining a free public library and for the consolidated government and its citizens. The BOLT, that's the Board of Library Trustees, shall be responsible for the administration of library and services. So basically, they're running the library. They're managing it. That's their job. They're like, all right, we're going to deal with funding. We're going to deal with, all these things that have to do with overseeing and managing it. And there's like 12 people that get assigned to this. So it's a board, and they have it set up so that they stagger like every 4 years because voting members serve a 4-year term. They are not compensated, except for any expenses that are incurred from their official duties. In other words, it's an appointed position with no pay, and their role is to oversee the functioning of public libraries here in Jacksonville. Now, recently in the Rules Committee, Elizabeth, Tia, and a whole bunch of others gave their comments regarding Elizabeth's nomination. Like I think people showed up, like people that want to show up to the Rules Committee meeting, they showed up to voice their perspective. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play some of the video regarding regarding that. First, I want to. Do I want to do it now? Yeah, we'll wait. We'll wait because I got news. We'll talk, and I'll show you a media clip, not a clip, but I mean an article here that just came in about the vote. So we'll just continue talking about. We'll just continue on the direction that we're going. So I'm going to play these in order that they occurred. That way, it doesn't sound like this person might have been like. I want to make sure that it makes sense because if I play them out of order, then you might get the wrong impression of what they were saying or whatnot. So the first person of these, I'm going to play Tia's response or comments. Elizabeth Andersen, obviously, because she was the person in question. Committee, I'm sorry, not committee, City Council member Boylan, and then City Council member Dr. Johnson. I'm going to play all four of them. Okay. And then I'm going to give you my thoughts on what they say. So let's play Tia really quickly here. Let's get that one going. So that's video number 3. Here we go.
Thank you very much. My name is Tia Bess, and my address is on file. I'm a Black woman. Look at me. I don't appreciate going into my child's education environment and being called a token, as Miss Elizabeth Andersen did. On the Beaches activist movement, Miss Andersen said, "So we have Keisha King, April Carney is my opponent, Tia Bess has a child with special needs, and they often parade her out as a token person because of her agenda." First of all, autistic kids aren't agendas. That's my child that she's talking about. Number 2, I have been advocating for parental rights as a strong Democrat until Miss Andersen decides to call me and my child token. I don't need anybody to parade me around because I am my own person. I'm old Jacksonville. My roots go back to 1908 in Jacksonville. So let's clear that up. I joined an activist group called Moms for Liberty because obviously every time I went to the school board meeting, I was just another nagging Black woman that no one wanted to hear. So
So I want to pause here for a second. I feel like the way city council, because I've been to city council, I have not been to school board meetings, so I'm going to assume that they're relatively similar. But I've been to city council meetings, and I have spoken, and I have observed people coming up there to speak, and I feel like city council has a tendency to treat everybody as just some nagging citizen. I've seen them. In fact, there's a video. I don't have it ready at the moment, but there's a video where I was directing my comments to the then president of the city council, and I waited, and he gave me no response, and I'm staring at him, and he's like looking at his phone, and so then finally I just kind of called him out. I was like, "I'm talking to you, sir," and I used his name. His name is Terrence Freeman. I was like, "I'm talking to you, council member Freeman. Would you like to respond?" or something like that. And he was, then he kind of diverted his attention. Now, he might have been listening in still and paying attention, but we all know if you're talking to somebody and they're playing on their phone, it does feel disrespectful. And so if I'm going to spend my time coming to a city council meeting, or if I'm coming to a school board meeting and I start feeling like, hey, they're just treating me as some nag, then yeah, I'm going to be extra frustrated. I'm taking time out of my day to come in and participate in government. And the time is limited. It's not like there's unlimited amounts of time. I think city council gives it like an hour and a half for public comment. An hour and a half. Like, we elected you. We voted for you. Our tax money pays your salary, right? Whatever money you get. You have a duty to respect us when we speak. And good, look, I get it. I've seen people go up and they're on some wild, crazy tangent, and you're like, I don't know what to say about that. but at least look like you're paying attention. Just throw that out there. So let's continue.
Problems fell on deaf ear. I've been advocating across the nation with multiple organizations, but I stand here today on my own as a mom. I'm not with anyone. I'm just here representing myself. If you have skin that looks like me, often you're afraid to speak up for being judged and criticized and not going along with everyone else.
So it's interesting because she said, I was once a Democrat and now I'm associated with the right, Moms for Liberty. I don't know if she's changed her registration to Republican or not, but she's very associated with Republicans. And so it's very interesting because I've heard this same comment from Black folk who are on the left, toward people on the right. So this does seem to be like a systemic problem of some sort where people feel like, hey, you're not really paying attention to me, not really listening to me. You're just, you're treating me like and then because of that, I have some level of, unwillingness to say what I really feel. And so, I think it's kind of interesting to point out because it's happened on the left, from the left, from people that are on the left. And now we see somebody who is more on the right. Again, to what extent, I don't know exactly. But she has associations with Moms for Liberty, Republicans. She's, went and spoke at events that Ron DeSantis has held. So for all intents and purposes, we should consider Tia to be on the right, even if maybe she's more independent or whatnot. And I'm speaking politically, not like personally. So anyway, just wanted to point that out. Let's keep listening.
Well, I decided not to do that. In 2021, myself, along with 9 other Duval County households, we sued the Duval County School Board for violating our children's rights with special needs. Ms. Andersen is not the person that you think she is. And I will say that, and I expected an apology. Is it okay for any of you to call this gentleman right here a token? I don't think so.
So I believe she's talking about Dr. Rockman Johnson, who is one of the board members. I'm sorry, one of the council members. He may be the only Black man on the, I'm trying to think. I'm drawing a blank at the moment. I think he's the only Black man, but I believe that's who she's directing her comment at and saying like, look, and he's on the left. So he's a Democrat. If we called him a name of any kind, would that be considered acceptable? Right? Like regardless of what our intent was. And we'll get into more of that in just a moment.
He would demand an apology. Anyone in this room who looks like me. It's not okay. Ms. Andersen, I hope that we can talk one day.
Now, what's very interesting about that comment, this is 2025. And all this happened in 2022, 3 years ago. So for 3 years, these two apparently have not been able to sit down for whatever reason. I don't know. I'm not going to point a finger and say this person that followed that person. I don't know. But I'm just going to point out that in order for Tia to make that comment means that neither of them had a conversation for 3 years to try to figure out how to resolve this. So I think that's a huge problem. If we offend, so I am a big advocate of if you upset the mob, do not apologize. Mobs are relentless. Half the time, a good majority of them don't care who you are, and they have no interest in whatever it is that they're trying to mob people about. So like if a mob were to call up your company and say, oh, you better get rid of this person. They said this really nasty thing. And if you don't, we're going to boycott and we're going to make a big stink about your business. A lot of times companies will capitulate. However, we have to consider that a lot of those people are not even, they're not people that have, went and been a patron at this establishment in whatever way that the establishment is, right? Like if it's a restaurant, a lot of these people haven't even been there, right? If it's a podcast, a lot of people aren't even watching it. They're just gathering together and they're taking this brute force approach and saying, oh, you said an inappropriate thing, we're going to destroy you. So for me, I say never apologize to the mob, ever. However, if you insult a person individually, that's a different story. You should figure out how to make amends. And I think in politics, the sooner you do that, the better. Because this happened in 2023. Now we're at 2025. And it's like, hey, there's this nomination. And then this crept back up. Whatever, you may believe that it shouldn't or should, whatever. The truth of the matter is, politics is a full contact sport. And so you have to recognize that whatever, especially if you do something in the context of politics, right? Like it's one thing if somebody digs up some stupid thing that I did when I was 22 and I was a nobody, not involved in any politics, not associated with any party, didn't have a podcast, no public face of any kind whatsoever, and somebody digs up something that I did or said that was stupid back then. That's one thing. It's another thing when you're an adult, you're in politics, and you say something foolish. You should probably resolve that before you move on, because unfortunately, you don't know. Like in this particular case, Jacksonville is dominated by Republicans. And the way that these nominations work is the mayor nominates them, and then the city council has to affirm or deny that nomination. And so you should probably be like, hey, going forward, I should probably resolve this so it doesn't come back. And in this particular case, it was big enough to make that comment. Like this wasn't like some small thing. Like it got big news and a lot of people were talking about it. You can go back and in fact, the other night I had Jeff Charles on, friend from the Liberty Space, right? From the world of the libertarians. And he actually wrote about this issue back in 2022. And I don't know if he was in Texas at the time, but he was, as far as I know, he was not even in Jacksonville. So he got wind of it in another state and wrote about this issue. So this was a big issue. You have to address these things. Let's continue on. We're going to play Elizabeth Andersen's clip. It's about 6 minutes. And I kind of debated whether or not I was going to play it, but I decided to go ahead. I'm going to play the whole thing because I want to give her the most objective justice on this show. By the way, I want to point out the other day she made a post. I saw it and I said, hey, why don't you come on this podcast and we can talk about it, and I said something to the effect of like, no gotchas of any kind, just an honest conversation. And I would have. And she liked the post, but then didn't say anything further, didn't say, hey, that's a good idea or anything. So I just want to point out, I did invite her. Now, look, I get it. I'm not a big name here in Jacksonville or anywhere for that matter. So I can understand where she might say, is that worth my time? And it doesn't take much effort to figure out, okay, I'm more aligned with Tia than her. So she might think, okay, maybe he's just saying that and he's not really going to give me a fair shake. So I can understand this. So no ill feelings toward Elizabeth for not coming on the show. But I will say I did offer, and had she come on, I would have absolutely been very objective. And I think if you look back through my podcast history, you will find that I have done a wonderful job of being objective, even when I side very strongly with one side. And I've given everybody hell. Like I've lost friends over giving them hell. Okay. Like actual friends. I give them hell and they get mad and they stomp off and then we have a falling out. So I think I've earned the respect of being objective. Probably the most objective person you are going to see who will still be very clearly on one side or the other in many cases. All right, so let's listen to what Elizabeth had to say, and then we'll go from there. So,
Good afternoon. I want to begin by thanking Mayor Deegan for recommending me for this opportunity. I appreciate her belief in me and my ability to serve our great city on the Jacksonville Public Library Board of Trustees. And I want to thank you, Councilman Howland, Chairman of the Rules Committee, and the entire committee for allowing me to come before you today. My name is Elizabeth Andersen. My address is on file. And as outlined in my resume, which you've all received, I have a deep commitment to our community and a passion for public service. Currently, I serve as the CEO of One Jacks, where I develop and implement community and youth programs related to resilience, civility, and building bridges of understanding among people of all beliefs, faiths, and backgrounds. In this role, I oversee our budget and manage a dedicated team. Leading a nonprofit requires strong strategic planning, collaboration, and communication skills, all of which are essential assets that I can bring in my role as a trustee.
Okay, so let's pause here for a second. If we're looking at purely, can you do the job? The answer from what I can tell is probably yes, right? So I don't think and I haven't really seen anybody say, hey, the skill set that you have is not a fit for this particular role. So I will give her that. Like, yeah, your resume, looking at it on paper, probably says, like, I don't know fully exactly what's necessary for the board of trustees for the library, but just based on what the little bit of research that I did, it seems like she would technically be a fit for that role in the context of, can you oversee the budget? Can you make proper decisions? Can you, help run, like a nonprofit organization? I don't know if that I don't know. I wouldn't call it a nonprofit just because the city pays for it, but it's fair. They're not making a profit, right? Like, well, I don't think they are. I'm not sure about that, but anyway. So I just want to say that, like, okay, cool. Like, you're probably on paper the right. You have the qualifications. No argument there. Let's continue.
Before beginning my role at One Jacks just over a year ago, I served on the Duval County School Board from 2018 to 2022, where I was responsible for helping to oversee a $2 billion budget and setting policies that impact our entire educational system. A few highlights from my time on the board include the successful passage of 2 local referendums to address critical funding shortfalls. In November of 2020, I was selected by my colleagues to serve as the chair. During this time, I had the honor of overseeing several legacy initiatives. With the support of the Jacksonville Chamber and bipartisan political leaders, we renamed schools which were a barrier to creating a welcoming city for all. With the support of consultants...
Okay, hold on. Okay, so yes, that did happen. I don't know that renaming schools, we renamed, I think, 2 schools because one was named after, I think it was a KKK member. Something B. Forrester. I'm trying to remember his name. A Civil War guy. And we renamed it. And I don't think anybody's ever went back and looked and said, hey, now that we've renamed it, are all the black kids that we said were not able to get a proper education because they had to go to a school that was named after a racist, are they now doing better in school? Like, nobody actually went back and looked. And this is a side comment. This has nothing to do with her. I just kind of pointing this out because they wanted, like, they, meaning the powers that be, people that were invested in this idea, wanted to do it to many other schools. And I was like, wait a minute. No. We already did it to one school. Did we get any good results? Or are we just all saying that we feel better that it's not named this way? Right. And so for me, I look for results, tangible results that I can quantify. And if I can't quantify them, if I can't say, look, reading scores went up and the only thing that was changed was the name, well, then maybe we shouldn't spend so much money. But again, I'm not going to ding her for that. There's a lot of people that believe in that. We had the statues taken down here, the Civil War statues that were taken down. That was a big fight, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of people do believe in it. I just want to kind of give a sidebar and say, I think it's hokey nonsense. I don't think that people are feeling any better. And I've seen people say, they're like I was talking to a teacher on Facebook years ago when we were arguing about the statues. And she was like, I, as a teacher, I think she was a white woman. And she was like, I, as a teacher, just hate to see my students playing in a park, knowing how they might feel. And I'm like, so they're playing. Has it ever occurred to you that maybe they're not the ones that care? You are. It's kind of like the whole vegan cat. We know who's making the decisions. Anyway, let's not get too sidetracked. I just wanted to point that out because I find that so annoying. But again, not a ding against Elizabeth Andersen necessarily in terms of whether or not she can or can't do the job.
Development and launch of a 5-year strategic plan with goals on improving literacy rates, addressing the need for soft skills development for our students, and expanding relevant career and technical education pathways.
Okay. So again, another sidebar here. When people are laying out what they've done, we really need to make it a part of our conversation that we immediately say, what were the results of that? If you say, look, I led the way in improving literacy rates, numbers. Before I started, I'm just making up numbers. Before I started, reading proficiency for, 8th grade students, by the time they graduated at or above level, proficiency, it was 30%. And after we implemented this program, it went up to 45%, right? And whatever, like we need to start asking those questions. And then say, like, okay, because that would go toward, are you the right person for this role? I don't care that you implemented something. Okay, a lot of people implement a lot of things and then they fail. I want to see, what are the results, tangible, quantifiable results. I don't want to hear that you just did something, but we don't have that information. So we can't use that against her either, right? Like, I can't say, nope, you're not a right fit because you implemented this policy and we spent a lot of money and you didn't even get good results. I don't know that, right? So as far as I'm concerned, she got good results. You could make the case that she's qualified for doing it because there's no results to say otherwise. But we need to start asking those questions. So just pointing that out.
I worked with staff to launch the Citizens Oversight Committee to provide transparency to the community for the half-penny sales tax for capital projects.
Okay, so as a libertarian, anytime you work for a tax, you're disqualified in my book. That's the libertarian speaking, right? I mean, okay, maybe not really disqualified, but it's going to raise a big red flag for me. Because why? Because on this show, taxation is and always will be theft. Let's continue.
And I established a board committee to oversee the development of policy and process for launching the district's first audit advisory committee, which continues to provide another layer of transparency and accountability to taxpayers for their investment in our public schools.
That sounds good. But again, we want to see results. But anyway.
In addition to these accomplishments as the chair, I also served as the legislative liaison for 2 years, where I was dedicated to learning and advocating for a free and fair public education system. And finally, I served as an executive leader at the state level for the Florida School Boards Association, supporting all Florida school districts.
Okay. So all that being said, sounds pretty reasonable to say I'm qualified for this role. I think it's fair. We could disagree with some of the particulars, right? And I could make my position known on, as a libertarian on certain things, or I can just say, hey, we're not asking the right questions or whatever. But just in generally speaking, sounds like she's qualified on paper, again, with her skill set for that role. But that's not really the issue right now. The issue, if you look at it, is, hey, you said this thing. And so a lot of people are like, you're not really qualified for it, right? Like, you're not you shouldn't be in this role because you said this terrible, nasty thing. That's what's going on. So let's continue. We're about halfway through. Let's continue and see how she addresses that.
All of this experience gave me invaluable insight into the workings of large public institutions and the importance of responsible governance. In addition to my leadership roles, I have a background in mental health counseling, holding a Master of Science in Mental Health Counseling from the University of North Florida, which has honed my abilities in effective listening, communication, and understanding diverse community needs.
Okay. So now we're starting to touch upon, if your skill set is literally communication and all in those things that she just said, it sounds like this issue should have never happened. So perhaps in the context of this debate, perhaps that's unwise to present, because now we're getting to the heart of the matter. Like, you said something, and then now you're telling us that you literally have education and formal training in communicating in this area. Okay, I think that's a reasonable criticism. Let's continue.
As a former Florida certified high school English teacher myself, I also deeply value education and literacy. Lastly, I want to share how much my family and I love the library. As someone frequently out in the community for work, I have visited libraries across the city between appointments to check emails or finish projects, so I know firsthand how valuable these hubs are. I spent many Saturday mornings at story time at the Pablo Creek branch when my son was a toddler, and now, as he finishes up second grade, he's reading chapter books that we borrow from the library.
Okay, good for her. I can appreciate that. And as a libertarian, generally speaking, I would say taxation is theft, and therefore, in my perfect world, would not go toward libraries. However, in the world that we exist in, I will say this. I think libraries should be on the low end of the totem pole of things that libertarian, I can say totem pole, by the way, because, Native American. But anyway, I think it should be a low priority for things that we object to our taxes going for, as long as the tax money is local. Now, I would object to federal money. I probably wouldn't appreciate state money, but like if there's going to be money spent that's taken from the taxpayers, and it is taken, okay, we're not giving it up willfully. I mean, we kind of are when we vote for it, but kind of not. Okay, I'm not giving up my money willfully. I'm giving it up at the point of a gun. If there is money to be spent, it should be on local things that benefit the local community, a park, a public library, so on and so forth. So I agree with her. I think public libraries have a value. It's really great to know that I can, if I need to, run down to the local library and grab a book if I want to do some research. And I don't have to necessarily buy it on Amazon and then wait for it to show up. And then hopefully I can get it. Like I think it's a really good thing. So as a libertarian, I'm going to simultaneously say taxation is theft. We really shouldn't be spending money on libraries. However, as far as things that I want to stop spending money on, that's got a very low priority. All right.
Higher level books that he doesn't have access to in his classroom. Our family loves books. Most days, my digital holds are maxed out on the Libby app. I believe the public library is a vital institution, and I would be honored to help ensure it continues to serve our community in meaningful and innovative ways.
Okay.
My top.
So we are 3 minutes and 50 seconds in, and this was like a 5.5 minute speech that she gave. So far, she has not addressed the issue. Okay. Just want to point that out. This is why I'm playing the whole thing. So let's continue listening.
Priorities for this role would include expanding digital access and digital literacy, supporting early childhood literacy and workforce development, as well as ensuring fiscal responsibility and strategic oversight. With experience in leadership, public service, and community engagement, I believe I am a strong candidate for the Board of Trustees and am enthusiastic about the opportunity to strengthen this essential resource for us all. Now, before I turn it back over to you all, I do want to take just a moment to acknowledge the efforts that have been made over the past couple of weeks to derail this appointment with false and divisive claims about my character and my beliefs. I want to be clear that I have no political agenda or ambition.
I'm okay. I'll accept that. Like, you don't have agenda is I think that everybody that's in politics has some sort of agenda. I don't think of agenda as necessarily a dirty word. Okay? Like, it can be, right? Like, if you have an agenda that doesn't match up with what, say, voters, like if a bunch of voters voted me into position on the basis of things that I told them that I was going to do, and then I didn't do those things, or I put less priority to those things because I had other things that I was really trying to do, that would be an agenda in the negative sense. But if I say, hey, vote for me, I'm going to do these things, or I'm going to work my butt off to make these things happen, well, then that would still be an agenda, but it would be a transparent one. So long as the agenda is transparent, I don't have a problem. And if her agenda is to, oversee the library, make sure it's, functions well, has, the right number of books or whatever, right? Like if it's, managing it well, then cool. That's an agenda in the positive sense. And it would be something that, while voters aren't necessarily voting on it, the city council members are voting on behalf of the voters in response to the mayor's nomination. All right, so let's continue. So we're at 4 minutes and 32 seconds. We've got about 58 seconds left. Let's see if she finally addresses the issue that is causing all of the problems.
What I do have is a lifelong commitment to public service, education, and building a more connected and civil community. Our library system is one of Jacksonville's greatest assets. It exists to inform, to inspire, and to serve all people, regardless of background or viewpoint. I believe in protecting that mission, not politicizing it. I've been in Jacksonville my whole life. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter. In my heart, I am a teacher and a counselor and a public servant committed to doing my part for a thriving community. It is my job every day to wake up and think about how we can confront division, not by deepening it, but by listening, learning, and leading with integrity.
Okay, fine. I agree. That I just talked about that with Jeff Charles the other night. And I said, we agreed that the Daryl Davises of the world, the Dia Khans of the world, that sit down with people that literally hate them, they produce the best results, right? And in those particular cases, we're talking about, like a black man and a brown woman sitting down with white supremacists, not the kind that we all say, oh yeah, that's a white supremacist, but self-avowed white supremacist, sat down and talked with people. And then it turns out that those people are like, you know what? Turns out I was wrong about race, and I no longer want to be in this organization. That's how you produce the best results. But yet, we just heard that seems to have been no conversation between her and Tia Bess in 3 years. And she just said, like, hey, like, let's go back a few seconds and let's just hear that real quick. Let's just hear what she said.
And a public servant committed to doing my part for a thriving community. It is my job every day to wake up and think about how we can confront division, not by deepening it, but by listening, learning, and leading with integrity.
Okay. Did she listen and learn? Did she sit down and say, Tia, let's go have a friggin' cup of coffee? Now, if she did and Tia said no, well, then I would have to like call out Tia and say, why would you not sit down with an opponent and have a conversation? But I don't think she would have. I mean, she literally just said in this same meeting, hey, I hope we can have a conversation. That conversation should have already been had. When it rises to the level that people are talking about this outside of Florida, perhaps you should say, we need to have a conversation. This got way big. Now, if it just stayed and there was a few rumblings and most people weren't even aware of it, yeah, maybe you can get around and say, okay, maybe it wasn't that big of a deal, just somebody squawking, right? But it was a big deal. Like, she lost her election, I think, in part because of this, right? Now she might have lost it anyway. The Moms for Liberty movement was pretty strong at the time, so there's a good chance that she would have lost it anyway. But it wasn't a guarantee. But I feel confident in saying that by not addressing this, by allowing it to do its thing, and blow up, she did not confront it. She did not confront the division and say, let's resolve this, right? So let's continue.
Regardless of what someone says about me, I know I bring those same values here today. I respectfully ask that you see beyond the noise and judge my appointment based on my record, my values, and my sincere commitment to what's best for Jacksonville.
Okay, so
Thank
she wants to look past the noise. So, I mean, think about that framing right there. She's like, hey, this is just noise. Is that respectful? Is that dealing with division and trying to heal it? No. And here's the thing. When you offend the mob, I don't care about them. Okay? The mob gets offended sometimes they're not even really offended. They're just trying to dominate. So in that particular case, I wouldn't care. But when you offend a single person, and she did specifically say, hey, this person is being trotted out as a token, right? And so, and I'm going to talk about that here in just a moment. But she did say that, and she never addressed it. So it's like, well, wait a minute. You're saying all these great things, and then in your 6 minutes, your roughly 6 minutes that you spoke, you really didn't address the core issue that's causing the dilemma here. Like, the issue that I didn't see anybody say she's not qualified. What I saw, at least based on her history and her experience, right? What I saw was people say, like, wait a minute, this woman shouldn't have a role because she's a racist or she's bigoted or she said this thing, whatever, right? We're going to get to some of that here in just a moment. So it seems to me that she didn't really address the real problem. All she wanted to do is get up there and say, look, I'm super duper qualified. On paper, everything about me says I should have this job. Okay. But again, we're talking about the division, which you spoke about, that you didn't address, and it was pretty major. So now I want to turn your attention to Council Member Boylan, because he had something interesting. And again, this is not tonight. And by the way, I'll have an update here in just a moment on the outcome of the vote, which you might already know if you're watching. So this next video is Boylan. I tried to cut it down a little bit and just kind of cut out some of the fluff, so you'll see a bit of a jump or something like that. But I think I've maintained the integrity of what he said, and then he actually directed some questions to Elizabeth Andersen. So let's hear him.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair, Ms. Anderson, 3 questions. Number 1, I'll give you the easy ones first. Your understanding of the role of the Board of Trustee as a Board of Trustee member, can you speak to that?
Sure. As a Board of Trustee member, I am responsible for governance, which is going to be helping to oversee the budget and set the strategic direction for the Board of the Library Trustees.
Number two.
Okay, so no problem there, right? We've already laid out that she probably is qualified. Like, I would have to dig deeper to say, no, I don't think you are. Probably is. Cool with that. Fine. I don't know. I don't know why we keep focusing on this, but I think I do. We'll see.
I shared an email or text with a mutual friend this morning and said, I kind of wish she'd withdraw for the good of the whole. Why did, because as she said, as you've heard, it's been very contentious across the board. Been easier for you to step away and say, why do I want to be in the middle of this divisive conversation? So tell me why you want to be in the middle of this divisive conversation.
I certainly don't want to be in the middle of a divisive conversation, but I don't think that we can let the divisiveness hijack our public processes.
Okay, so that's a wild statement to make, because literally that's what happens every single time. The moment somebody has controversy, the process basically it's hijacked, and all we do is focus on that controversy. Now, sometimes I would argue, yeah, it's relevant. Sometimes I would be like, nah, not so relevant, right? Like, it just depends on what it is. But it happens at the local level, the state level, the federal level. It comes, people hijack the process on the right, they hijack it on the left. It happens in the libertarian movement. So the idea that like, oh, it shouldn't, that bird flew a long time ago, right? That ship sailed. So that's just a weird thing to say. I mean, I get what she's saying. She's like, look, this is what she's trying to do is downplay and say, it's not a big deal what I did. What I said was not a big deal. That's what she's trying to do. And she's trying to focus on, look at my attention. And I find that to be a problem. And I promise you, we're going to get to why. I'm going to give you some more details about my thoughts on this whole thing in a moment. But I wanted to play what they said and and then just offer some minimal commentary along the way.
I believe I'm qualified to serve in this capacity. And more importantly, I want to be able to continue to move this city forward. And it shouldn't be about misinformation or divisive rhetoric.
Okay. I don't know what misinformation she's specifically talking about. Now, it could be that a lot of people are saying, hey, she's a racist. Okay. It could be that, she's talking about something else. And then the divisive rhetoric, well, she initiated it. She like ask yourself, if a minority person of any kind, LGBTQ, Black, a midget, I think you're supposed to call them little people or something like that. Like whatever. Like if somebody is in a minority, there's a smaller percentage of this particular group of the whole. And then they're doing something particularly for their child. And then you call them a token. How did you think that was going to play out? Like what did you think was going to be the result of that? You think somebody's going to be like, yeah, I'm a token, but no, every mama that is out there defending their child is more than likely defending their child. Well, there might be a few cases where they're not, but more than likely, in almost all cases, they're defending their child because they believe that's the right thing to do. They are being the mama bear. That's what they do, right? So the idea that they're just a token, it seems absurd. And she's the one that initiated this. Well, let's continue listening to the questions.
So I feel a responsibility to stand up not only for myself, but for the processes in our great city.
Mr. Carmelucci mentioned it, and I want to speak specifically to the Tia Best situation. We all say things we regret, either in social media or in person. Lord knows I've got a whole long list of those. Do you want to speak to and respond to that particular situation?
Thank you, Councilmember Boylan. I would be happy to.
All right. She's going to talk. Now she's finally talking about this, right? She didn't mention it in her 6 minutes. Now she's being asked, like, hey, do you want to talk about it? And this is the big issue, right? Like, and we'll see it in a minute. This is the big issue. So let's see how she responds, because I think it's very interesting.
I think that it's important to start first and foremost by saying that tokenism is unequivocally wrong, and the exploitation of marginalized people for political gain is wrong. And I don't know how to call that out without using the word token.
Okay. I do. Now, I don't have all the years of experience. I have no degree in communication, but I can, as a podcast bro, a guy that just gets a microphone and starts yapping and won't shut up. You can ask my wife. I'm not very good at shutting up, right? I don't have lots of degrees. I don't have many years of experience in public service. I can tell you how you respond to that. What you do is you say, I respect the fact that this person is doing this thing for their child. And I think they are doing what they should be doing, which is advocating for their child. However, I think that they are being used by this entity over here that cares about them a lot less than it might seem. Now, yeah, there's no one word that like sums all that up, but that's how you say it. If you have a degree in communications or you have some formal training with communications, this should not be that hard. It's not that hard. Just be like, hey, look, because what you're doing is you're distinctly making sure that you have clearly and unambiguously acknowledged this person's autonomy, this person's identity, right? Like, hey, you're a mom. You're doing what a mom does. I respect that. I probably would do something similar if I was in your same shoes. So you're basically saying you are an autonomous person. Then you turn around and you say, but I think these people are taking advantage of you. It's that simple. It's not hard. This should not have been that difficult to say that. Correct me if I'm wrong. All right, let's continue listening.
And I think in any occasion where there is an opportunity to stand up and call out a practice that is not okay, we should.
Okay. Did you notice there's no apology. There's no like, hey, I didn't mean to offend her. I didn't mean to talk in a way that suggested she didn't have her own autonomy. I didn't mean to say something that would suggest that she didn't know the game that was being played. I mean, perhaps Tia was being taken advantage of. And perhaps she looked at it and said, this is the only way I got to fight for my kids. So damn it, I'm going to do it. Right? Perhaps that was the case. Perhaps Tia, it was being taken advantage of and she didn't know any better. Okay. Perhaps there was no taking advantage of. And it was very mutual on both sides. Hey, you've got a message. We like that message. That works for us. We're going to give you a platform to speak a little bit louder. Right? Like maybe it was very mutual and there was no taking advantage. The taking advantage was from Elizabeth's perspective, not from Tia's perspective. So if I engage in a behavior, like it's possible that you could say, hey, DL, you don't realize it, but somebody's taking advantage. That's a possibility. It's also possible that's not true. So where did she get this idea? How is it that she knows for certain what was going on in Tia's mind, how she felt about the situation? Because they haven't had a conversation as far as I can tell. So while I agree, if you see something that's inappropriate, you should speak up. But you should also make sure that you recognize when people have agency. And you cannot take that agency away. You cannot assume that they don't have agency just because there's an action that you believe is inappropriate. You can't do that. All right, let's listen.
So you don't regret your comment?
I do not regret calling out what I believe is an unhealthy and unfair practice. If anyone was hurt by that or their feelings were...
Okay. If anyone. No. Tia. You said it about Tia, one person. That's the problem. And now she's kind of like, well, if anybody, we're not talking about a generalized statement. It's not like she came out and she said parents that are yelling at school board groups are bad actors. She wasn't saying that, right? She said a specific person. She was talking about a specific person with a specific child. So the idea to come in and say, well, if anyone, no, we're not talking about it. You're not apologizing for some random generalized comment. You're talking about a very specific comment that was directed toward a very specific person. This is a problem.
Hurt, then certainly I regret that. It's never my intention to hurt someone. But I do hope that it is my intention in all of the work that I do, it would be my intention as in every role that I get to have in this city, that we work toward inclusive spaces where lots of voices are at the table so that we can.
Okay. Why then was Tia not at your table, at the coffee shop or wherever? Why are we not hearing from Elizabeth and saying, I don't know why Tia is making a big stink about this. We talked about this back in 2022 or 2023 or last year in 2024. We sat down, we resolved it. I thought the issue was behind us, and now she's speaking up again. That's not the conversation that Elizabeth is saying. She's not pointing that out. So in my mind, she did not reach out and try to say, let's be inclusive and assume that maybe a Black person who happens to be siding with the right has their own agency, has their own point of view, understands what's going on, and is not being taken advantage of. Maybe I was wrong in this situation. Perhaps it does happen, right? But perhaps this one wasn't the case. And we don't know that because for all the talk about inclusivity, there was no conversation. Why? Daryl Davis sits down with KKK members, and this woman couldn't sit down with somebody that was heavily critical of her only after she said something, right? Like, as far as I know, and I could be wrong, like I wasn't as familiar with anything that happened prior to all this breaking out, but it's possible that Tia maybe came out and criticized Elizabeth and said, I'm supporting April Carney, and got into that circle of people. That's possible. I don't know. Right. But again, why didn't you, like, if all this stuff is important to you, communication and inclusivity and not hurting people's feelings, why are you the one person that you've actually offended, like really offended? You're referring to them as if they're like this random person with no name and no identity. If I offended anyone, no, you offended somebody very specific. Talk about that person. Talk about Tia. How do you talk about how you felt? Whatever, anything. Say her name. Jesus, like, it's weird. I didn't think I'd ever say her name, but yeah, say her name. But you didn't. So aggravating.
And really ensure that we are hearing the majority and that we are innovative and creative in our approaches. And I hope that activists and advocacy groups make that a priority as well.
Okay, so that's the extent of her comments. Okay, I got one more video. It's a shorter video. This is Dr. Johnson, committee member. I keep saying committee. Council member. Do you say council member? Council member Johnson. I have acknowledged that he is a doctor. I don't know how you string all that together. But anyway, this was very interesting. So let's play this last clip, and then we're going to talk about some stuff here. So
I did have a few remarks that I wanted to share, but before I did, very quickly, I'm going to keep it brief because I know we need to get to other business. Through the chair, Ms. Andersen, I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm going to ask you to do something for me. We all heard Ms. Bess, and you could hear the exacerbation in her voice when she came up here. Clearly, she was offended. Would you apologize to her now?
I am so sorry that Ms. Bess was offended.
And I've heard you say that
intention.
before. You've told me that on the phone. I keep hearing it out there. Ms. Bess, I know you're here. I hope there is the apology publicly through the chair to the crowd that for years, it seems like you never got publicly. It just happened in the dais, from the dais and for the Jacksonville City Council. So I want that that's number one. Thank you for doing that and indulging me for that moment. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I don't buy it. Just a moment ago, and again, I played these in order so that you know, Elizabeth had 6 minutes. She didn't mention Tia. She didn't make a specific apology. When she was asked if she regrets it, she paused. She chose her words carefully, and she said, well, if anyone was offended, no. We're talking about Tia. Talk about Tia. If Tia is offended, that was your opportunity to say, I apologize. Your opportunity. So, Dr. Johnson, when he asked you, that at that point, it no longer matters that you gave an apology. It just doesn't matter. It slightly mattered when the door was opened with Councilmember Boylan, right? He was like, "Whoa, what would you want to say?" Like that was your opportunity because he said, "Would you like to speak to this?" And she could have said, "You know what? Yes, I would like to speak to this." And she could have said, "Wherever you are, Tia," I know she's, the audience is behind her. She could say, "Wherever you are, Tia, I just want you to know that my intention was never to offend you. And I wish before now we could have sat down and had that conversation," right? That would have been a weak one, but it would have been a little bit better than saying it when you were explicitly asked by somebody who's supporting you. Okay. Because, like, it's like if my son does something, like the context of his apology matters. If I go, "Dude, why did you poke the dog with your toy? Why'd you throw your toy at the dog?" or something like that, whatever you might do. And he might be like, "I'm sorry." Okay. Does anybody believe he really is sorry? No. No, we don't. And when you're an adult, your sorries become different. You might get, an exacerbated sorry and be like, "Fine, I'm sorry." Yeah, that's believable. Or if people have to prod you and pry it out of you practically, we don't believe you either. Okay. Now, look, I don't generally take strong opinions against words. I'm very old school. I'm like, look, sticks and stones break bones. Names can never hurt me, right? That kind of thing. At least not on a permanent basis. Like you might have to take, again, politics is a full contact sport. So you might have to take a lump. Okay. If you say something dumb, in most cases, because who is it? Boylan? I think it was Boylan. He said, "Yeah, we've all said something dumb." And one of the other council members in that same meeting had pointed out like that he no longer has social media because he said dumb things. I get it. We all say dumb things. The more you talk, the more likely you're going to say something dumb. Okay, fine. I get that. In most cases, we can probably ignore you. Okay, that's true. We don't, but we can. We can just be like, whatever. Sometimes we might need to drag you to send a message. And then occasionally you lose heavily. Now, I think in politics, when you're trying to get positions of power, then you probably should lose heavily or at least be dragged so that a message is sent. Not appropriate. Okay. Now, if you're just a regular schmo, then we could probably just ignore you. This is kind of like that. The woman that wished death of, or wished the sniper or the shooter for Donald Trump's failed assassination, right? Like that lady from Home Depot, she's like, "Oh, it's too bad they missed," or something like that. We could ignore that. We didn't as a society. We made a big deal out of it, but that we can ignore. She had no power. Like, whatever. You're just saying something dumb. But if you're trying to be in public office and you're trying to have power, I mean, because Elizabeth would have authority or some weight, not necessarily authority, but some weight over many millions of dollars, right? However much that ends up being. So she's in control of I don't want to say in control because she's not, like it's a board. So she would be part of the organization that is in control of the library. She would have a say in how the library functions, the budgets, and all that good stuff. Okay. That's a position of power. So when it comes to a position of power, we cannot ignore you. And if if you are like, "Look, I'm a public servant. That's what I like to do," I think fine. Okay. Then you're a person that's seeking power on some level. Therefore, what you say matters just a little bit more. Now, again, we can sometimes ignore people. Like, that's cool. Like not everything dumb thing that somebody says do we need to make a big stink about. And really, the only reason I'm making a big stink about it is because you made no attempt to reconcile with Tia. Look, Tia's my friend, but if in 2023, let's just pick a year, if in 2023, Elizabeth was like, "I need to reach out to that Tia lady, and I need to try to reconcile with this issue. It's been long enough. Hopefully she's calmed down. We can have a conversation. Let me go and try to reconcile that." And let's say they met for coffee and they sit down, they're talking it out, and they did manage to reconcile it. And they shook hands and they walked away and they said, "All right, it's done. It's end of the story." And then now all of a sudden, scroll forward to 2025, she's trying to get an appointment. And if Tia had come out and said, "Well, I can't believe you called me that." And then if Elizabeth was like, "I thought we resolved this," even though Tia is my friend, I would have called her out. And I'd be like, "Whoa, no, if somebody tries to reconcile with you and you say it's done, it's done." But that's not what happened. Didn't happen. What bothers me more is kind of the hypocrisy here. So like Dr. Johnson, who's a black man, he was like, "Well, would you apologize to Tia?" And she's like, "Yeah, I apologize. I'm so sorry." And they're like, "See, all better now. Under the bridge. We can move forward." No, because why? Because if I referred to Dr. Johnson as an Uncle Tom, a coon, a Negro, or worse, if I referred to him in those terms, and then a few years later, I was eligible for an appointment, would it be so cool as water under the bridge? No. They'd be making the same exact they'd be like, "Whoa, wait a minute. That's the guy that's a racist." That's exactly what they would say. You know it, and I know it, right? And if I, at the last minute, the 11th hour, because all those clips that I just played you of the meeting, they were on Monday. They were, no, I'm sorry, they were the 19th. They were just recently, okay? They're basically the 11th hour. Things have already hit the fan. And now she's like, "Oh, yeah. I'll apologize now that you finally asked me about it." Like, missed all those opportunities and then finally give an apology. And all of a sudden we're supposed to be like, "Yeah, it's cool. No big deal." No, not acceptable. And look, I know that um, it's, it, we're still playing partisan games. We're pretending we're not, but we really are, because that's how politics works. Okay. Now, in fairness, I've been critical of Elizabeth. Let me be a little fair to her. I think she was making the point that Tia was being used, as I said earlier. And in the process, she labeled Tia as, saying she was a token, which denies Tia her autonomy. Okay. So I understand what she was trying to say. Like, was she trying to necessarily jab at Tia? That's not my impression. Now, Tia may disagree. Other people might disagree with me, and that's fine. This is why I'm America's most objective libertarian. Okay. I think I understand what she was trying to do. She was trying to say, like, look, the Republicans are running with this because you've got a story that tugs at emotional heartstrings, and they're using you so that they can win politically. Okay. Yes. That's literally how politics works. So I agree. You can make that argument. The way that you make it is important. And what she did was she took away Tia's autonomy. She literally did the meme. I'm going to put this meme up so that you can see it. Okay. Here's this meme. Woke white liberals. And it's got a black woman standing there. And it's got the caricature of a liberal woman who's got pink hair, a bunch of buttons. The black woman starting to say, "I'm not oppressed." So this would be a more conservative person. And then the white liberal is like, "Shh, you are, you just don't know it. You see, I went to an Ivy League school." That's what the meme says, right? Elizabeth actually did the meme. She said, no, you're being taken advantage of. I'm not going to ask you your opinion. I'm not going to see if you have a different perspective. I'm going to talk about inclusivity, but you're doing the meme. And I know I'm supposed to be trying to be a little bit on defending Elizabeth a little bit. All right. So I'm defending in the sense like, yes, you can call out behavior that you think is inappropriate, but the way that you do it matters. And when you do it like you did, you end up becoming the meme. And that's exactly what she did. She became the meme. Now, maybe that's her true character. I don't know Elizabeth well enough. I haven't seen enough of her to make that assessment. But I will say that you did the meme, Elizabeth, whether you like it or not. And that is a systemic problem on the left. The left has a systemic problem where there'll be a black person who is conservative or Republican, and they get called all kind of nasty names. That is not inclusive. Okay. Now, it is possible that Tia, in her effort to fight for her son, was taking the opportunity, even if the GOP was using her, right? That's possible, but you don't know that because you haven't talked to them. So let me tell you a story. Two of my favorite economists, Thomas Sowell, Walter Williams, both of them are black. I cite them all the time. The reason I cite them is because I've read so much of their material and I've learned so much from them. And I think they break down arguments very well. They make them easy. They make complex information easier to understand. They've written a lot. Both of them were like 80 years old, right? So they've been writing about topics that I talk about longer than I've been alive. Okay. So these guys are very influential to me, and I highly respect them. And sometimes when I quote one of them, I'll have a liberal say, "You're just quoting him because he's saying what you want." And and I had to think about that for a long time, because I was like, "No, I'm not." And then it dawned on me, I know what's happening here. You, the person who said that to me, you don't believe that a black person can be so intelligent that they influence somebody like me. And I'm not necessarily white. Some people kind of see it that way, but I might be at least somewhat passing, except for maybe right now where I've been out in the sun a lot and I got a nice tan, right? But the point being, I think there's this fundamental racism that exists within the left. And they believe that black people need to be babied. And they will stomp all over their autonomy if they have to. Now, whether or not this was deliberate and that's how Elizabeth believes, I cannot say, nor will I try. But that is how it played out. Okay? So, but let me say this. If you ask me, DL, do you think Elizabeth is racist? Off this one incident, no, I do not. The reason I say that is because people often say things they don't mean because of poor articulation, anger, or maybe thinking the comment was not as bad as it was in the moment. We all have been there, right? Like you say something, you're like, wow, sounded a lot better in my head. And then when I said it, it sounded a lot worse, right? Like that happens. So off of a singular incident, I'm not going to necessarily say you're a racist. Besides, my bar for what is considered a racist is extremely high. I think we are way too loose with the term. So I refuse, unless it's like, if you've got repeated instances of something, then I'm like, look, I can't deny this. You've got a pattern. Like you've got a pattern that Helen Keller would identify, right? Like it's undeniable at that point. So off of a single one, no. And I rarely, not always. I don't want to say I never do it, but I rarely view a single incident as indicative of internal racism, right? But as the meme suggests, I do think there is a systemic problem with soft bigotry of low expectations, and that it's exactly what Elizabeth did, even if she didn't mean it. Now, here's another question. Should she necessarily be excluded from any and all future appointments or elections? Also, no. But she should resolve major issues long before that time comes. And she did not. Hopefully, this is a learning experience, and she will reach out to Tia and say, let's resolve this. Let's figure out, even if they end up not agreeing, they don't have to agree on everything, right? Like they can just come to terms, and she can say like it's not a hard conversation. Like it goes like this. Hi, Tia. How are you? Okay, I'm fine too. You know what? I apologize for what I said about you. I wasn't trying to demean you. What I was trying to do is say, hey, I think you're being used. And I did it in a way that took away your autonomy and assumed certain things about you. And that was wrong of me. And I will be honest, I did that because I see it happen so often. And so for me, this was just another one of those times. But what I should have done is treated you like an individual and at least said it in a way that ensured that I did not take away from your autonomy and your ability to understand the situation and make a proper assessment. You know, that's how the conversation should go. Something like that. Right. Is her apology genuine? I don't know. I tend not to believe it based on the timing. Even if it is, it doesn't address Tia again, and that's part of the problem, right? Like she didn't address Tia until she was explicitly asked. But up until that time, she's acting like she's talking about some unnamed woman who's literally in the audience. All right, so let's talk about, let's put this up on the screen here. And let me show you the outcome because as it turns out, the where is it here? Let me get this up on the screen here, and we will go over. This is an article that comes from A.G. Gankarski think I said his name correctly. So let's go over here and put it up on the screen. There we are. All right. Jacksonville City Council rejects Elizabeth Andersen for library board. Well, these things happen. As expected, the City Council has rejected the nomination of Elizabeth Andersen to the Jacksonville Public Library Board of Trustees, but not before proponents of the Donna Deegan pick attempted to turn the tide against the, quote, partisan political nonsense, end quote, as Democrat Jimmy Peluso put in the discussion. Jimmy, it is not, you're doing it. He's a white guy. He's doing it. He's saying it's nonsense. This is the same man that went out early to watch Confederate statues being taken down. I did an episode on that. And he was talking about how big of a deal it was and how this impacts Black Americans. All right, Jimmy, since I keep having problems with you, and I'm trying to be nice, has it ever occurred to you that people who are Black, that are on the right side, that are center right, right? The right of center, or at least they're siding with people on the right. Has it ever occurred to you that how they feel by how people on your side treat them also effing matters? I mean, are you retarded? Were you thrown on your head as a child? Seriously, it is not nonsense when a mom is fighting for her child and she gets called a token. I can't think of anything to say other than you must have been thrown on your head as a child to actually believe that. Or to come out and be like, this is partisan political nonsense. Yes, that you're also engaging in. This is such a non-controversial thing, Peluso said of the former Duval County School Board member and the current CEO of One Jacks. In your mind, your nice white mind, it's not a big issue to you. But honestly, let's be real. It has nothing to do with race. I'm pointing that out because that's the language that people on the left understand. But what I really think it is, she's not on his team. If Tia was on his team, this would be a controversial thing in his mind. This would be something that matters. It would be important. It would not be political nonsense. He's playing teams. He is engaging in the very same political nonsense that he's claiming to oppose. But he's supporting it. Republican Matt Carlucci noted Andersen's work to pass a half-cent sales tax on the ballot in 2020, a measure that boosted infrastructure funding for the school's system aged building stock. Does she have any felonies? Does she have any criminal record? No. That doesn't matter. We're talking about a public servant who right now is in the center of controversy for something they said. Something that if the tables were turned, if this were a right-wing person and a left who said something about a left-leaning person, the left would be screaming bloody murder. You're a racist. How do we know that? I don't know. Look at all the Republicans that have said something that uncouth. Look at every one of them. See what happens. And Democrats never come out and go, you know what? Yeah, they said this thing. They shouldn't have said it, but it's really no big deal. It's non-controversial. We should move past. They don't ever say that. Why? Because it's a team sport. And they need to start acknowledging it. Stop lying to us, Jimmy. We know damn well what's going on. You're playing team sports. No, I don't think you're a racist either. Dropped on your head. I'm sticking with that. Sorry. Let's continue. Indeed, she lost re-election in 2022, and she was rejected Tuesday by a 13-5 vote, with no one speaking against her nomination. But it didn't matter. Members of the audience jeered after the council expressed its will, a repudiation of a mayor who didn't count votes and of a nominee who didn't acknowledge the writing on the wall, as made clear when Andersen's nomination was rejected by the Rules Committee the week before. The jeers were short-lived, though. Public comment offered an opportunity for people to express their animus. This was written by A.G. Gankarski, a local reporter. So thank you, AG, for that content. So, all right. So she's not in. She lost 13-5. Kind of obvious. What did I say on social media? I pointed out and I said, because somebody was like, I can't, they were upset and they were angry about, the fact that this is all going down. And I said, look, there are 1 million people in Jacksonville. There is somebody with less baggage. That's really all I said. Because at the end of the day, since she didn't want to address her own baggage, well, then she has to live with it. That's what you chose. Okay. You chose not to address it. And you could have addressed, like, presumably, Donna Deegan reached out to you and said, I would like to nominate you. Would you be willing? Like, presumably they had a conversation. I don't know that for sure, but I'm going to make a guess. And that's the moment you should have said, Donna, I need to address some stuff. That's the last moment you should have ever had that thought in your mind. I need to go address stuff because you're a Democrat. You have a heavily Republican city council, and I was in the middle of a major controversy. Let me go and deal with that because otherwise you're not going to have the votes. Somebody should have had that friggin' conversation, right? Like somebody should have thought about it. How many times have y'all watched some political show and they've got some wizard there who pulls somebody aside and they ask him a barrage of questions and they're like, have you ever been with a prostitute? Have you ever done this? Have you ever done that? Have you ever done this? Right. And they're prying very personally. And then that person's getting uncomfortable and they're like, look, if I don't know everything about you, I can't make sure that you win. That's how they should have treated this. But not in a political sense. I mean, what we see on TV is political sense. A genuine sense. You should have been like, look, I would love to be in this position, but I think it's going to be kind of tough because I lost my reelection and the people that won were people that called out some things that I said. Let me go and figure out how to address those and calm the waters before this nomination gets out. That's what should have. The last moment was that moment. After that, it's basically, you're trying to catch a fish with your hands. That's basically what's happening, and the time to really do that was in 2023, 2024 at the latest. If you know you are planning to be in politics, go and make amends, figure it out. Doesn't mean you have to go and grovel, right? Just go and work it out so that you don't have things that pop up that are going to hinder what you're trying to accomplish. It's not hard. So she lost, in my opinion, deservedly so, not because she said the thing, but because she did not figure out how to make amends. And then she wants to lecture us about what a great communicator she is and how that's her skill that she has acquired. Well, how about you use it? And, that's how it goes. There's nothing else to say. Let me look at the comments here. Let's see what we got in the comments here. I should have taken some comments earlier, but I'll just take them now. Interesting. That Liberty Lady says Elizabeth Andersen loves public education, and she has that Defender of Public Education tagline that she got a bunch of shirts made up. Katie wears that shirt often. Okay, that's fine. I'm not a big public education fan. I think public education could be good and can deliver results, but it's not. And at this point, we should probably just scrap it, start all over. Because I think we're beyond the point of reform. I don't think we can reform it. I don't think we can make a change or two and things are going to get better. So let's see. I like AG. It's funny. I've known some friends and they've talked very poorly about him. But I watch him on social media and there are days where it's like, he sounds very libertarian. There's other days where it's like, yeah, sounds like a Democrat. And other days he sounds like a Republican. Because he's just criticizing everybody. And he calls himself the most hated man in Jacksonville. That's awesome. If you're a reporter, virtually no party should like you because you should be holding them all accountable. Hey, if you ran and didn't win, this is why you failed. If you ran and you won, but you didn't do the things that you promised, then you failed, right? You should be calling them out left and right. And everybody should be afraid. If you're a reporter and you walk into a public meeting where there are elected officials, they should internally groan to see you because they should be like, oh my God, how are they going to get me? How are they going to drag me? Right? Now, if somebody does something good, you obviously should acknowledge that as well. But that's what I would love. I would love to see more reporters and journalists out there who make it difficult for me to really say, yeah, they're left or right or whatever. I want to sometimes be like, man, they kind of sounds like something I would say. That's what I want to see. So yeah, awesome. All right, folks, I think we are done for today. So we're going to head on out. By the way, I just want to mention, I'm behind on not only my hours for streaming, but also my watch hours a little bit. We may not make it. Remember, if you've been following me for a while, I worked really hard to get into the Rumble Creator Program. I've been working really hard to meet my objectives. They're very high bar. I have never met any of those goals before, other than the 30 hours. But I had to have 30 hours of streaming time, 5 hours of private, not private, but Rumble Premium, where only those who pay for Rumble Premium get it. And then I have to have 200 watch hours, which I've never had on Rumble. So it's possible that I don't make it. But if you can do me a favor, go to my Rumble channel and watch more of my videos, right? Just find some, there's tons of them there. There's plenty for you to choose from. Go watch them. And look, I'll tell you a dirty little secret, but don't tell Rumble. You can also just go and play it on a device and just let it go. Okay? Just telling you that quietly. Don't let Rumble know. It's a little gaming the system. But if you do it, like, I can't get mad at you if you're helping me out, right? Like I would appreciate it if you actually watch and listen, maybe even give me feedback. But if you don't, I get it. If you got more pressing things to do, if you got to catch up on Black Mirror episodes, I totally understand. But just give me a little bit of a boost if you can do. Thanks. All right, folks, let's head on out. And I hope to be back tomorrow. What I didn't mention earlier is that the AC is out. That's what I got met with last night when I came home, is no AC. So we've got all kind of disruptions going on here. I will do my best to deliver some shows. So I will see you hopefully tomorrow. Have a good one. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found this episode informative and inspiring. Be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. for an informed discussion on politics and culture. Make sure that you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, or if you prefer my Rumble channel, you can go to youtube.libertydad.com, or you can go to rumble.libertydad.com. While you are there, let me know how I'm doing by leaving me a comment. You can also become part of the community by heading over to libertydad.locals.com. Remember, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you next time. But for now, I'm out.